Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. I am here with Jacob and Brian, and we got some hog mollies for you, covering some offensive linemen in the 2025 draft. But before we begin, Jacob, how you doing?
Doing great, man. A little bit under the weather with all this crazy weather in southeastern Ohio like normal, but I'm always happy to hop on and talk draft.
Fantastic. Brian, how about you? How you doing?
Doing good. I'm here on the West Coast, so I basically just woke up like half hour ago.
Fantastic. Well, we are going to be covering 8 linemen who are going to be scattered around the draft board. Our goal here is we're going to just talk about what the scouting reports and these players are, maybe a little bit of their background, have a little bit of fun, and if you have any questions, drop them in the comments or find us on Twitter. You can see at BMafia NFL, at Roachism13, at NFL Draft Fanatic. There is no I Am Fanatic. So if you have questions on anybody while you are listening or watching the podcast, feel free to drop a note. But let's start with Mr. Marcus Wehr from Montana State. So, Brian, what can you tell us about Marcus Wehr?
Yeah, so obviously he's from Montana State, so he's an FCS kid. He's got a good frame, but he looks like he can still add some bulk to it. I saw some explosiveness off the snap. He's played tackle, he's played guard. He's obviously going to be a guard at the NFL. His arms are really short, though, I noticed. I don't know if you can even play tackle in the NFL as outside, even like as injury fill-in. They might even be like, 31 inches arms, so they're pretty short. So I think a downside, even though he has experience, I don't know if he can do that. His pad level gets a bit high after the snap. Off the snap, he's pretty good, but he seems he kind of rises throughout the rep. And then also but he's pretty quick, like I said, and he's athletic. They use him as a puller. They pull him to lead out in front of like screens and whatnot. And you got the second level, he can track down linebackers. I notice sometimes he's so fast, he's too fast to even catch the linebackers sometimes. But he just needs to work on his technique, use his arms more, especially when he's in the run game. I know sometimes when he's in the run game, he's kind of just like throws his shoulder into the defender, not even using his arms. Sometimes I think he's just bigger and stronger than most of those guys. But when he's in pass pro, he uses his arms. So
Yeah. Okay, Jacob, what can you tell us about Marcus Wehr?
Yeah. Well, one thing when you see a guy like this, an FCS school, excuse me. I apologize in advance if I got a little bit of a head cold, so I may cough on you guys. I'll try to limit that a little bit. But the first thing I always look at with these guys is, are they on the Senior Bowl watch list? Because guys like this, that is a big moment for them in the process. And I'm looking at it. I don't see where he's gotten an official invite, but it seems like Nagy in the Senior Bowl is watching him closely. And that's usually step one. I'm like, oh, okay, let me go look at this guy now. Yeah, I think he's got that. Brian talks about it with the and the athleticism and technical skills and that he displays specifically as a run blocker. Yeah, I agree. I can't find an actual measurement on his arms, but they are shorter. So I think he's probably a guard. He's been moved to right guard at one point this season. So he's been on the inside and the outside with Montana State. 6'4", 300 pounds. A little bit taller than your traditional guard, which is nice. You love to see the length, the height with a guard when you're talking about a guy with shorter arms, because you still got that big, long, that length and that kind of that reach when you can use that kind of stuff. I just think like he can play really physical. I think he's a pretty good athlete. I think he just needs a little work with some of the technical sides of things. He's got power in his lower half. And Brian even said he's a little lengthy. I think he could add some size. You add some size and kind of clean up some of his hand placement things and the way he drives players. If he can get on, play with good leverage, I think he can be a really nice guard at the next level.
So day 2 or day 3 grade right now, Jacob?
I have him I think early day 3. He's definitely a guy that the physical tools and athleticism is there to where if he goes to the Senior Bowl and just blows people out of the water, I could see him sneaking on to day 2.
How about you, Brian? Day 2, day 3.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what's happening. I got kicked off. I don't know. But anyway, I have a day 3 grade on him. I also forgot to mention he's a little bit older. He'll be 24 in December.
Okay, so next player.
Oh, I love this guy.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, okay, we're going backwards. Haha. Let's do Cam Williams, and then we're going to be going backwards through the list. We're going to be doing it the reverse order.
No, that's fine. I've got everybody pulled up, so I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, so, Brian, what do you want to tell us about Cam Williams from Texas?
Yeah, he's been a mover in this how do you call it, in the boards, I guess, this year so far. He was a backup actually his first 2 years at Texas. Huge dude. He actually came into Texas at about 365-ish, and he dropped his weight down this year to about 335, or at least his listed weights. And you can see the weight loss in him from the little bit of film I watched of him last year when he was a backup and he got a few snaps here and there. Compared to this year, he does look like he's dropped the weight. But he still, I feel like he still needs to lose some more of that baby fat. Still needs to work some of that little baby fat into muscle and whatnot. And I know it's a couple weird things. I don't know if this really hurts him positively or affects him positively or negative, but I noticed he uses like 2 different stances throughout the plays. And it's weird. It's like he just varies it up just like randomly, and he has one that's kind of weird where he's kind of like leaning forward and he's kind of at an angle and stuff. And then the one where he's just kind of like normal stance. And I'm not sure if the coaches are telling him to do that or if that's something he's deciding to do. When watching them, I don't see his the other guys, the guard and the center and the other tackle and all them. I don't see them varying their stances. So it must be something he's deciding to do. I don't know. I'm not sure why. If he's trying to kind of confuse the defensive lineman or whatnot. I don't think he needs to do that. It's not really going to, I think it's better, especially with him, with his lack of experience, just to focus on just doing one stance now. If he wants to mess around later on when he gets older, more experience, go for it. But I think it's kind of like something that it's adding too much on him.
Cool. Jacob, what do you have on Cam Williams?
What's that?
Oh, I was asking Jacob what he had on Cam Williams. Sorry, I thought you were done, Brian. I'm sorry.
No, I'm still going. I got a whole paragraph. But yeah, so he moves well for his size. He passes off stunts and stuff pretty easily. But yeah, his technique is kind of a bit of a mess. His arms come out really wide when he's in pass pro. Ends up allowing defenders to get into his chest. You can really see that in the Georgia get into his chest and just shoving him back and just shoving him. Especially his left arm needs work. He'll do a one hand punch. His left arm lags like way behind his right arm sometimes, and he needs to try and work on doing when he wants to do a one hand punch. Also working with just using his left arm, so he's not just focusing on his right, so he can throw some variable stuff at the defenders. Also strike high and wide with his hands. But he's really good length. He's athletic to lead block on screen games. But he will struggle to keep up with bendier speed rushers, especially like in that Georgia game. You saw those guys just speed rushing him, using their bend against him. Sometimes his feet look a little heavy sometimes on certain snaps. I'm not sure if it's laughing where just he looks kind of slow.
So Brian, your audio is cutting in and out. So we're getting probably like every other word. Hold on. So Jacob, what do you have on Cam Williams?
Yeah, I think a lot of what Brian said that I kind of go back to some of these deficiencies with him is you can tell when you watch him on tape that he's a 1-year starter, that he's a first-year starter. Yeah, he's played some. He's been a backup. He's got snaps. This year isn't the first time he's ever had snaps, but you can see that he's not been a full-time starter in college when you watch some of his tape because Brian's right. He gets sloppy, but man, do I like this ceiling on this guy. Tall, long, rugged, powerful. Like Texas kind of runs, they run the ball more than they throw the ball. And you can see that kind of in his refinement and his technique. Like his pass pro, it's just not there yet. Those speed rushers will get by him, like before he gets into his set. I think some of his footwork, like first step off the line of scrimmage and some things like that, I think that's really where he needs to get off the line and get into his set, that he can struggle there. Because if he's got his hands on you, he's just going to ride you around the quarterback and put you behind him. Like he's big, he's powerful. You're not going to go through his body. He likes to drive guys onto the ground. Like he wants to be physical. He wants to be a mauler. As a Browns guy, when I talk about those guys, I just always reference Wyatt Teller and what Wyatt Teller, the right guard for the Browns, loves to do. And that's where Cam Williams is as a run blocker. He's not a terrible pass protector, but he's just not there yet. If you can work on his hand technique, like I said, he's got the tools, the arms, the movement skills, the power. If he can work on his pad level, keeping his pad level where it needs to be and his hands where they need to be, I really like Cam Williams.
So out of curiosity, do you have a tackle that you could, even though we haven't necessarily covered all the linemen yet, do you have a tackle, like who's rated higher on your board and then who's the tackle that's right after him on your board?
Oh, let me pull that. Just one. I didn't pull that up. Let me pull it up real quick. Because I have it. Nope. I think I have him. I have him fourth. So I have him fourth. Right above him is Ursery, the tackle from Minnesota, the left tackle there. He's the guy that's third on my list. And right behind Cam Williams at tackle 5, even though there's the injury there, I got Josh Simmons. So I like Josh Simmons more than I like Cam Williams, but he's also coming off of an ACL tear and only just this year really started to look like a left tackle as he was, still learning the position. Okay. But yeah, he's somewhere around in between Ursery and Simmons for me.
And you have Banks and
Will Campbell, 1 and 2.
Yeah, okay. And do you think Williams is a better tackle prospect than Banks or Campbell?
I think he doesn't have the question marks that make you think he's a guard. Those other guys, I think Campbell and Banks can be tackles. I like them a lot, but there is a lot of people that think they're guards, arm length, and some of the other power situations for like Campbell. Some people don't like Campbell out on an island on the outside and that sort of thing, and think that he needs to be between some people. I don't have those question marks with Williams, so I will say that. I still think the other guys are tackles, but I don't really hear anybody saying Cam Williams is a guard.
So, Brian, how about you? Where do you have Williams on your tackle board right now?
I have him, I think, I think I'm as my third tackle.
Okay.
Yeah.
With Campbell and Banks is the 2 tackles ahead of him?
Yes.
Yep. Cool. And is that a round 1 grade that you have on Williams right now?
I actually have a second round grade on him.
Second round grade.
Yeah, like I said, I'm just concerned about the technical issues. I honestly have him as a return to school player. I think he should go back to school. But
okay.
Yeah.
So for the listeners, just a couple points here on Cam Williams. So I think the couple things to highlight. He's a 1-year starter. This is not a great tackle class. Like relative to what came out in 2024, the 2025 tackle class has some questions. So if you compare the notes from Jacob and Brian, somewhere between tackle 3 and tackle 4 on the board, but he's also has a lot of the NFL measurements for a tackle. And that's going to be part of the draft narrative you will hear as we go through draft season. So the next offensive lineman we're going to cover is Jalen Travis from Iowa State. So, Brian, what can you tell us about Jalen Travis?
Yeah, actually, I didn't really know much about him coming into this. Oh, got messed up here. I really liked what I watched saw in this film. He actually has a basketball background. He was a basketball player in high school, and then his cousin played basketball. I believe it was his dad, and he has some other family members that played basketball as well. Should I get this? Sorry, my notes are getting.
Okay, well, Jacob, you are up on Jalen Travis.
Yeah, man. Here's another mauler. So if you're in the get me a mauler at tackle, or even if you want to move him into guard, I think he's fine as a tackle. But even if you want to move him inside, the 6'7", 315, and you see it. you see the power and force that he brings to the table. I'm sorry, he's 340, not 315. I don't know why my notes say that. I think he gets off the ball really quick, really explosive first step. Some of the issues that I have with Cam Williams in that aspect, where sometimes I think he can be slow to get off the line of scrimmages and into his sets, I don't think Jalen Travis has that issue. Now, he's got 1 year against what you would call, I don't know, quote unquote, good talent. I don't know what, coming from Princeton, spending time there. I will say this. When you're in an FCS school or a smaller school of any shape or size, you need to go out there and dominate for me to think you're an NFL player. Well, Jalen Travis does that. He will drive you out of bounds, put you on the ground. He is an elite run blocker. I don't think he has an issue. I think he's an above average athlete. I think he has a pretty good processor. He can pick up stunts and other types of I'm trying to think. When defenses are trying to disguise their pressure and they do some stunts and some twists and things of that nature, I think he does a pretty good job picking that stuff up. And I think he's got the athletic profile to be able to counter that, especially when people try to go wide. I've seen a lot of wide 9 with Jim Schwartz in Cleveland, and I think he's fine. He's not going to be intimidated by something like that. He has played on both sides of the offensive line. He's played both tackle positions. I love those guys, especially if you can get them on day 3. If you can get a guy that can play both tackles, has done it. Again, I think the hands are just okay. I think the length is good. I think I've never heard a bad word said about him. All the things that I read about him is it's a high character player. It's just a little bit more work on his hands and just getting more tape against better competition. Those are the concerns I have just from where he came from. But yeah, man, like if we're talking day 3 swing tackle and Jalen Travis is there the 4th or 5th round, and you're like, man, my offensive line, Cleveland sucks. I should probably go out there and get a guy that can help me at multiple positions. But yeah, no, I just think a little bit of refinement on some of the footwork and the hand technique, because the tools are there. Great athlete, pretty experienced. I like him a ton.
And similar to what we had said about Cam Williams, you think his measurables will be better, for example, than Banks or Campbell?
Yeah, I think so. And there's the thing, like with Campbell and Banks, I read somewhere someone said that they're pretty sure Banks and Campbell are around 33 inches, which is below the 34 threshold. But like, I don't know, the arm length thing is, I think sometimes we overblow the arm length thing is all I'm saying. But yes, in terms of that, I think he has more natural length and longer arms than those guys do.
Okay. And does Travis have a Senior Bowl invite? Do we know?
Let me look.
At minimum, he's on the watch list.
Yeah.
I
know they just started sending them out. This is my favorite time when they start sending out the Senior Bowl.
Okay.
Because I'm like, all right. I'll record it while I'm at work. Like I'll DVR the practice and I'll come home and I'll just watch it at 3 a.m. So he's on the watch.
I think for any of these small school guys, seeing what Travis does at an all-star game, that could be the huge difference between being picked in round 4 or round 6.
Yeah.
And again, prepping the audience for what you're going to see on draft day. Offensive tackle is a premium position. Travis has the measurables to play tackle at an NFL level.
Yep.
So if your front office of your favorite team is very measurable based, we're only going to draft people that meet the thresholds that Jacob mentioned. Travis is going to check a lot of those boxes. Cam Williams probably will. Travis probably will. So they may skip on those two higher rated linemen who everybody is saying are going to go in round one. If they don't have the measurables, and they're going to wait a round or two or four and then go after a player like Travis. So I definitely think he gets drafted. I have a high amount of confidence that because of his measurables, he's top 175. If you're sitting there in round 5 and you need an offensive lineman and he's there, he has the measurables. He may not have the right level of competition on his pedigree, but that's the kind of tackle that we're going to be talking about a lot in this year's draft class.
Yep.
Okay, so Jacob, you want to tell us about J.C. Davis from Illinois?
Where's it at? There it is. All right. All right. What I like is that we're talking about some big dudes on this pod today. I love the big, nasty mauler types just because, it's the primal instinct in me to when they just maul people, like, man, like it's just be aggressive. But yeah, 6 foot, what do we got? 6'5", 307. I think this is another guy that probably could add a little bit more size and still be able to do it at his height. I think the frame's there. His footwork and his hand use, his technique, I think are borderline elite. I think the physical tools, they can come and go. I think he moves really well laterally, has quick feet in that sense. I don't love pulling him or climbing to the next level. I think he's fine. All these guys are at least fine athletes, or they wouldn't be playing at the level that they're playing. But I like him more as a pass protector than I do a run blocker. But like his hand placement and his just all around technical side of his game I just think it's phenomenal. I think that his feet are where they're supposed to be. His hands, they're where they're supposed to be. He's using his hands how he's supposed to, getting under guys' shoulder pads, driving them out. A little bit, I think he's I think I talked about adding a little bit of size and power. I think he's one of those guys that he would benefit a ton from not playing in 25 if he goes into the NFL and spending a couple of off seasons in an NFL strength and conditioning program, because I think he's got it. I think he's got the juice there. If he adds just a little bit more muscle, doesn't even have to get that much bigger, but you get what I'm saying. Just a little bit more muscle, a little bit more power to drive guys in the run game, because I think he's a really smart player, understands what defenses are trying to do with him. If you're looking for a technician when you're getting into tier 2, 3, and 4 of these guys, if you're like, man, I just need a guy that I know what he's going to bring. He has a high floor. I think he's got a lower ceiling than some of these guys, but he's a high floor player because he knows how to play the position from the technical standpoint.
So, and where do you have him? Like day 2, day 3?
I've got him late day 3. If things go well, he's actually been one of the bigger risers for me because, I'm an Ohio State fan, so I watch a lot of the Big Ten, and, Illinois and Indiana have just had years. I know Indiana's is on a different level than Illinois, but like I watch a lot of Big Ten is all I'm saying. So I have him a little bit high. I would say he's a 3-4 for me, a round 3, round 4 kind of guy. Like, just because I love high ceilings, but for me, high ceiling guys are the guys that have like really freaky level ceilings. And I take those a little bit higher in the draft. As I'm starting to get later into the draft, and some of these guys like this, where I'm like, I know the floor in this player can get it done. I love that. And so I think a lot of people will say he's a 4th, 5th, maybe 6th round guy, but I'm like, hey, he's refined and I think he can hit the ground running. So I'll take him closer to like borderline top 100 is probably what I would say.
Good. Do you have Davis higher than Travis?
Yeah. Just a little bit. Just a little bit because I like the technique things. But
Okay.
yeah, they're definitely right there together.
Okay. And then you said, or
Yeah,
that's right. So Harkey was somebody you said that you didn't have a lot on.
No, I couldn't
So-
find any tape for some reason.
So it was difficult to find information on Alex Harkey from Texas State. So this is a small school guy. He transferred from Colorado to Texas State.
Okay.
And when you look at some of the scouting information on Harkey, he didn't get a lot of offers when he entered the transfer portal out of Colorado. That's probably why he went to a small school. He's here because Jim Nagy tweeted him. So that was why we covered him. And we're having some technical difficulties with Brian. Brian had a little bit more on Harkey, but this is a name to watch during the All-Star circuit. If he plays well, he probably will get himself drafted late day 3.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 6'5", 325, you got my attention.
Yeah, like you said, we have some big guys in this podcast.
Oh yeah. They're all
okay. And then we're going to transition to a very big gentleman, Mr. Javontez Spraggins from Tennessee. What can you tell us about Mr. Spraggins?
When you see a guy with the level of brute strength that he has and is able to play with a low center of gravity and a good pad level, you're going to really excite some NFL teams. Because when you're these bigger guys, and I know he's only 6'3", but that 325 and the way he's built, he is a thick, dense player, and he can still get under your pads. Like, he's got just such heavy hands. Like, if you think you're going to get into his chest and move him or whatever you think you're going to do, you're not. He's going to he's going to win the hand fight on the interior 9 times out of 10. Just plays really well within his frame. He doesn't overextend. He's not an elite athlete, but he's also aware of I'll say this in air quotes. He is aware of any athletic limitations that he has. So you're not going to see him when he's out in the open field lunging and missing and things like that. He understands, maybe I'll just try to get in the way if I can't completely get out there in time. I'm not going to completely whiff. And I just don't think you see that a lot with him. So he understands his frame and understands how to play with it. I think he's an average pass protector because of those athletic limitations. But again, strong, powerful base. You're not going to go through his chest. I just think that, when you're looking at an average pass protector, not a great athlete, sometimes against bigger nose tackles, the real big nose tackles, he doesn't really move them. Now he can tie them up and he can hold them in place and make sure they don't wreck, the play, so to speak, but he's not as good of a mover against the true one techs as you would like from a guy with that size and power profile. But I think he's a guy that provides really quality depth because, hey, I think what he's really good at is being a 6th or 7th lineman in like a goal line package where they like to put guys as extra tight ends or even as a fullback. I know he's not the greatest athlete in the world, but if he's coming straight at you with that size and power, he's going to he's going to bull you over. But I think he's a good day 3 kind of guy.
Okay. Do you have him in your top 175 or do you think he's outside that range?
I'd say he's probably borderline. I would say I haven't fully numbered. I haven't combined all my position rankings yet. I mostly have them separate. So I would say he's probably around that area.
Got it. Emmanuel Pregnon from USC.
Yeah. I like Pregnon. Again, I love guys with versatility. He's played at both guard positions. Like that, anytime you've got a guy that can play on both sides of the line, some people don't think it's all that difficult. I think it is because you're trying to do everything the exact opposite way when you go from one side to the other. And when you're a guy that is just kind of, he's got questionable arm length. He's a little bit, I think, pad level. I think he's got some issues. I think he's got like some tightness in his hips. And as a result, you won't see him get down into stances or play with as good a leverage as you would hope he would. But at 6'5", you're going to kind of run into some of that stuff. He's really good at the power versus power. If you're going to go at him with power versus power, I think that's where he wins most of the time. I think bull rushers don't really have a ton of success against him. And one thing he does, I like to highlight guys of this size. I think about DeJuan Jones with the Browns, and like sometimes those speed rushers struggle to just get around DeJuan Jones. And I think 6'5", 320, 325, wherever he's at, he can, if he bulks up a little bit, sometimes it's just, hey, he's got a lot of mass. Like there's some mass there, and it helps kind of do those things. But I think he's just got to work on trying to get some more flexibility in his hips so that he can play with a better pad level and leverage. But I think the versatility to play on both sides, I think will be something that is coveted in the draft.
And where would you have him day 2, day 3?
Probably the middle of day 3.
Got it.
I just don't think he's there as a pass protector right now.
So, Brian, how about you on Emmanuel Pregnon? What's your scouting report on him?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if I'm having internet issues or what. But yeah, I got a he has he's athletic.
You could see his face right as it died on him.
Yeah. Okay. So last offensive lineman, Armand Membou from Missouri.
I want to know why people aren't talking about him a little bit more. I see a lot of people, he's around 100. I mean, I guess a lot of that has to do with this year has been by far his best year for Missouri on the right side. He's played the last 3 years on the right side. He had 13 games last year, 10 games the year before. But you're talking about a guy that has no sacks this year. 5 quarterback hurries. Yes, 5 quarterback hurries is where he's at this point in the year. I love the physical makeup, 6'3", 325, and I think he's a really nice athlete. We've been talking about these big hog mollies that maybe don't move as well in space. I don't think Membou is that guy. I think his ability to get off the line of scrimmage quickly with an explosive first step, especially if he's climbing to the second level. If you're running maybe some pin pull and he's moving laterally or climbing to the second level and trying to wall off, a defender, I think he does a great job at it. And I think when you look at his size, you're a little bit surprised by that. He's not, a more lean guy. I mean, 325 at 6'3", maybe a little bit lean, but like you look at him and you're not sure how he's moving like that. Like I'm looking at him like, what are you doing, dude? Length, versatility. I think he can play on the inside. Another guy that I think just needs some time in an NFL strength and conditioning program. Just a little bit more power. He can get bull rushed. He's got power, does a good job moving people. I think he is the technical side as a run blocker. I think he's really good. His hand placement, like I said, his ability to climb and snap off the ball. I just think when somebody goes straight into his chest, sometimes he struggles to keep them out of his chest. And then he gets deposited in the quarterback's lap. But when I look at him, I'm like, hey, here's a guy with the tools and the athletic profile. If I could just stick him in the weight room for the next 6 months, add a little bit of strength and power to his lower half, I think he can be a quality right tackle.
So you definitely project him as a tackle. You're not kicking him inside. You suggested he could.
Yeah.
You would project him as a tackle right now.
I would right now. And one of my co-hosts on the Browns podcast I do always says, let a guy fail outward. So put him at tackle. If he can't play tackle, move him inside. But I think he's got the skill set to play tackle, so let him try. If he can't do it, if you're looking at it and you're like, these coaches see him a lot more and know a lot more about him than we do. And you're like, he just can't do it at the next level. That's fine. But I think the physical tools and the attributes, I really like what he does in space.
And do you think his measurables will check out 34-inch arms to play tackle?
He's going to be pushing it, I think.
Okay.
But I think he'll get 34 or 35. I think he'll be somewhere in that range. Okay. If not, I can't see him having less than 33. But you know how hard that can be trying to project just from images and stuff.
So do you see him as day 2, day 3?
I see him as borderline top 100. So he's probably in the top 100. So yeah, day 3. Or no, I'm sorry, day 2. I meant round 3 is what I meant. Yeah. But yeah, borderline top 100 for me.
So you would have Cam Williams ahead of him, right, on your board. Where is he? Like, how close is Travis or Davis, other guys that we covered, to Membou on your board? Like, how far do you think separates them? Just like 20 guys, maybe?
Yeah, probably not a lot, because he just lacks the technical refinement. I just really love the floor, which, like I said earlier, I love those high floor guys. So they're closer to him than like their raw talent would suggest. But I think like between 80 and like 130, I think there's a lot of pretty quality offensive linemen right there in that range. Rather you want it to be a technical guy or a ceiling guy.
Yeah. And as we podcast and we cover, this channel has draft content every day. So right now we're just going over scouting reports, but some messages that you are going to hear from the different people podcasting on this channel. So with offensive line, you're bigger than the sum of your parts. So if you have 5 offensive linemen, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals 8.
Yeah.
Because the offensive line as a unit does more than any one individual. So going back to Jacob's comment about the floor, if you draft 5 offensive linemen for their floor, they raise the ceiling of the whole unit. That's what we mean by like 1 + 1 = 3. With offensive line, it's about how you function as a unit, and you want as many guys with a high floor, right? So they may lack maybe elite quickness, or you're not going to be able to run certain schemes because you may not have pullers or something. And the reason I point that out is it would not surprise me. So we talked about Josh Simmons earlier in the podcast, but he's coming off of an ACL injury. There's Cam Williams, but Cam Williams is very raw.
Yeah.
Right? It would not shock me to see a player like Membou get drafted really early, round 2, simply because he's a higher floor. So think of, there's going to be some teams that need offensive linemen early in round 2. The New England Patriots immediately come to mind. The question is, which offensive lineman are they going to go for? Because you'd have a hard time convincing me to draft an offensive lineman in the top 10 this year.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I've been doing a lot of, obviously Browns content. And so they're in the top 5 right now. And it's a lot of people get mad at you. And I'm just like, I love tier 2 and 3 of this class every bit as good as I do tier 1. And then, like, say you trade back and you're in like 15 to 18 and Will Campbell's there, home run. Top 10? Not sure.
Yep. And a player like this, you can hedge a Will Campbell pick because you could pick 2 offensive linemen within the first 100. Campbell, Membou, Banks, Membou. And if that first guy or the high ranked player that you grabbed has to kick into guard, as long as you need 2 offensive linemen, that's a reasonable way to draft. You're essentially hedging your bets at the position. So
that's what I
agree. Go ahead, Jacob.
I said I think that's what the Browns should do.
Yep. Well, and I'm a Bills fan, and there was a year Buffalo drafted Spencer Brown, and then they drafted another tackle. I believe that was Tommy Doyle right after him. He drafted 2 tackles round 3 and 4 one year. Okay. If you need offensive line help, it's okay to draft more than one, because a lot of times you're going to be kicking a guy inside, or you need to let one guy develop while another guy plays. I do agree the draft community is, let me rephrase it. I think the media is sleeping on Membou, but I think the people who are draftniks, I think he's going to be drafted higher than people think. I think even though he's in the top 100, I think he's going to go closer to, let's say, the top 45, because there's questions on some of those other offensive linemen, like coming off injury and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so hard with Josh Simmons too. Like, he's like one of those wild cards. Do you take a guy coming off the surgery that had a really good projection and was going up, or do you take Membou? Like, as much as I love Simmons, might lean Membou in that position. So, like, yeah.
And one of the comments I make is you have to know who your GM is.
Yeah.
And if you're Brandon Beane, you have significantly more latitude than if you're a new GM at a new team. So, meaning if you're a new GM at a new team, you can't risk a first or a second round pick that's hurt, because if you miss, your fan base isn't going to let you forget it. If Brandon Beane or who's the guy in Kansas City? I'm already forgetting his name.
Is that Beach? Who is that? Oh, God.
Yeah. So the GM in Kansas City can miss. The GM in Buffalo can miss. The GM in Baltimore can miss. So, meaning the GM in Baltimore could take a chance on an injured player like Josh Simmons.
Yeah.
Because if they miss, Baltimore tends to draft reasonably well. I know Ravens fans on Twitter tend to disagree. According to me, the Ravens draft relatively well. They might miss on, they're having problem drafting edges, but most NFL GMs will miss on more edges than they hit on, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that when you're looking at the tackle class, you need to know who's hurt and who's healthy.
Yep.
If your GM is on a short leash because it might be win now or get fired, you're more likely to take Membou than a Simmons, even if Simmons is higher rated.
Yep.
Because you can't risk drafting the player with an injury. And no matter what position we're talking about, I've mentioned that on the podcast. We're going to see the same problem with cornerbacks in this class. But I think Jacob and I could sit here and talk about this for a long time. We've done 8 scouting reports in 45 minutes. Follow Jacob on X at Roachism. That's Roach IZM13. Follow me, Jim, at NFL Draft Fanatic. There is no I Am Fanatic. Please subscribe on Twitter. Subscribe on YouTube. And remember, every day can be your draft day if you have the right attitude. On behalf of Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, thank you very much for watching.